2019 legislative reception is presented to us today by Missouri Employers Mutual. My name is Heather Hargrove, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Government Affairs Committee, along with Joe Henderson.
Hi, everybody.
First and foremost, we want to say a huge thank you to our local delegation for joining us today. We are extremely fortunate to have a very supportive and dedicated legislation in our Columbia area. And with us today, we have Representative Cherie Tolson Reich, Representative Kim Kendrick, Representative Martha Stevens, Representative Chuck Basie, Representative Sarah Walsh, and Senator Caleb Rowden. If you could please join me in a round of applause. As you all know, we can't do what we do without the great sponsors we have for all of our events, and Government Affairs has been especially lucky. And please join me in thanking our presenting sponsors today, Missouri Employers Mutual, our catering partners, Blue Events, our water and drink sponsor, Culligan Water of Mid-Missouri, supporting sponsors, Missouri Credit Union and Stony Creek Hotel and Conference Center, and also our location sponsor, the Food Bank for Central and Northeast Missouri. At this time, please welcome Jim Owens, President and CEO of Missouri Employers Mutual.
Thanks very much. Missouri Employers Mutual has been a member of the Chambers for over 20 years. So we're very happy and very fortunate to be the presenting sponsor today because this is a perfect time over the many years we've been a sponsoring member for the legislative event, because this year I know that workforce development is going to be a key part of both the legislature and we know it's a part of the government. Missouri Employers Mutual has been very involved these last few years with Hawthorne, with the Missouri Partnership, with the Chamber, and with Ready in the workforce development, because even though there's very good news, and that is that workers' compensation is doing better than it's ever been since the 40s. It's actually the most profitable line of insurance business, and it's good for all the businesses. And it's also, Missouri Employers, which has been growing like crazy. We've gone from 12,000 to 18,000 businesses that we insure, and again, we're doing very well. The bad news, I think some of you guys have heard me say it. The bad news is that the lack of skilled workforce is the biggest problem we have. And how does it translate into workers' comp? And I'm sure for the other insurance folks here, how does it translate? Let me give you some quick figures. Out of all the people who we have insured, out of the 18,000 workers, several 100,000 workers. Out of all of those workers, you see I have people on the job for from 1 year on the job up to 50 years on the job. Of all the injuries we have, those injuries right now, the workers that are being injured, 37% is the highest total we've ever had. 37 people are being injured in the first year on the job. And that's staggering, and you know why. People are not getting good workers on the job, and they're not training them well. And it's because a lot of them just aren't training. And of that, if that figure doesn't shock you enough, about 30% of that 37% are injured in the first 10 days on the job. Wow. Now, it gets worse. We have something we call catastrophic injuries. That's people who have over $250,000 being paid out for their injuries. Of those people, 50% of those are those people in the new hire. That's between 0 and 365 days on the job. And of that figure, 64% last year and 61% this year of the dollars going out for those catastrophic claims are going out to people of those new hires. That's staggering, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just bad for families. Believe me, it's terrible for families. It's bad for businesses. It's bad for business development. It's bad for all of us. So what we're trying to do at Missouri Employers Mutual is we've got 18,000 businesses and we're growing. But we have to do something. And it doesn't happen without the same reason we've grown at MEM. We've grown because of collaboration, because of support. We spend our policyholders' money, but we get a return on investment when we spend it on things like Hawthorne, and we spend it on Chamber, and we spend it on community events. And we believe our policyholders' money has a return on investment when we spend it on this collaboration with businesses. And when we spend it on collaboration with what we're now putting out in safety grants. The safety grants, we put out $10,000 if the business will match that $10,000 in a safety. So John Bender Fire is just a drywall officer, it's just one business. We bought 4 safety lists and they went half and half on that. They're scissor lists, I'm sorry. So that is used instead of using ladders on the job. So that business now saw it drop down immediately in the safety, because nothing's more unsafe than climbing up on a ladder. Immediately they started having a drop in their injuries. Immediately they saw an increase in productivity. In other words, they were getting more jobs done, they had less labor costs, and they said in their first year they also immediately saw $20,000 in savings. And we believe strongly, and I know Rick Means, we talked to the governor, he did with Rick about that same thing. Increasing, we don't believe as an insurance company that we just want to have safety. We want increase in productivity, and we want increase in profitability in the business, because we believe in the Missouri businesses. But we know the one thing we can't do is this workforce development. We've been trying. We have 14,000 businesses under $10,000 in premium, and most of them are under $5,000 premium. And I used to hear an expression from a judge that said, I'm busier than a one-armed paper hanger. And they are. They can't have time to train people. They don't have time to even spend the time hiring the right people. So this is going to take a community effort, an effort with you all, and that's why we got so much more involved in Hawthorne and Missouri Partnership. I'm very much involved in the legislature. But it's going to take a commitment to get training out there to these ladies and gentlemen working and getting injured badly. I mean, these are horrific, and they come to my desk, every one of them, so I can see them. When we have an injury and a death, we fly every office we have, we drop those flags out front to half-mast, so that everybody coming up to that office knows that somebody's been injured or killed. And that means something to us. So we have to have those cooperation of all of us, because we can't train these people. They're just too busy. So we have to find education through the university, through the businesses, through the legislature, through the governor, to make this all around us. Because I'm telling you, it is got to stop. So I don't mean that big of a Debbie Downer, because it's a new year. Happy New Year, everybody. And it is getting a lot better. Rick, isn't it? It's getting a lot better. We're having a lot more safety, and I think we're having a lot better results, but we just don't want to stop it there. So I'm sorry to drag on so long. Happy New Year. It's to be better.
Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
We are also grateful for our location sponsor today, and please help me welcome Lindsay Lopez, Executive Director of the Food Bank for Central and Northeast Missouri.
Thanks so much, Heather. We are absolutely pleased to have you here. I want to thank Jim, especially because Missouri Employers Mutual is a great partner to us, and they are helping us to operate this organization as safely as we possibly can. And that's incredibly important for reasons that he mentioned. We are a long-standing partner with the Chamber and really appreciate that relationship. As an organization that employs 64 team members full-time, operates in 32 counties, and annually is distributing 30 million pounds of food with a wholesale value of more than $50 million, it's really incumbent upon us to operate not just as a nonprofit, but as a charitable business. And that's why that relationship with the Chamber is really, really important. I want to thank all of the legislators who are here and those who are not. Because we operate in 32 counties, we know that the decisions that they are making are impacting the lives of the people that we're serving, and we're very, very grateful for that partnership and relationship we have with them. And then on behalf of the 100,000 adults and children and seniors and veterans that we're serving every single month, I want to thank all of you for being here, and if you have supported us in the past or will consider that in the future, we're very grateful to you. Also, we've got a number of board members here, including Heather, and really, really grateful for their leadership. So thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to express my appreciation for all of you coming out today. We were a little bit concerned about having this meeting on the 3rd. We were thinking we'd still have a bunch of people out on vacation, but we do appreciate your attendance, and we do appreciate our legislative delegation for coming today. This is certainly a highlight for us to talk about our legislative statewide initiatives, and so we appreciate your participation and the fact that you're going to have an opportunity to make some comments. Before we get into the legislative agenda, I do want to share with everybody the process that we go through to put this together. This goes back to late summer, and we take approximately 3 months to solicit our membership and people in the community as to what the key issues are. Once we have done that, we bring that back and we take those ideas and talk to various other interested parties, including our legislators, to see which one of those ideas resonates with them. And then we go back to Government Affairs Committee and we make a choice and seek their approval, and then ultimately that goes to the Chamber Board of Directors for final approval and adoption. Before we move on to the agenda, I do want to, if Government Affairs Committee members are here, will you raise your hand? Because certainly, would you express your appreciation to all of them? Okay, why don't we get started, and Heather, I think we'll lead off.
So as always, as you leave today, the list of state legislative priorities will be outside on a card, and I encourage everybody to take one for yourself, but also take as many as you need and distribute those to people as you share the message from the chamber today and the issues that we are keeping an eye on and pursuing as we go through this next legislative session. So our positions on various policies are issues that our chamber will be monitoring closely, as you know, and we will now begin to highlight those top 6. The first is support stabilizing the funding for the University of Missouri to help ensure the university can carry out its mission. Thanks to the robust leadership of President Choi and Chancellor Cartwright, I think I just saw Chancellor Cartwright in the room, thank you so much. The University of Missouri has moved forward and will be stronger thanks to the progress that you continue to make in that area, and we appreciate that.
Our second point is to advocate to fully fund pre-K through 12 public education. This funding will ensure that Missouri's education system is both competitive and capable of effectively preparing tomorrow's workforce.
If you were able to attend our last lunch with a leader, you'll understand how this topic continues to be so important. And so support a sustainable plan for a comprehensive transportation system to better support Missouri's economic growth with a focus on advocating the rebuilding of Interstate 70. So as you know, in 2018, the Chamber did support Prop D, and we continue to advocate our community's desire to move a plan forward that would not only repair the current deteriorating infrastructure, but would account for future needs as well. We will continue to closely follow and support any progress on this infrastructure during the upcoming legislative session.
Our next point, which has been on our list now for a couple of years, has to do with supporting the efforts to get the new airport terminal at the Columbia Regional Airport. And as you know, Stacy Button and the city has done yeoman's work in moving that project forward. It appears that based upon their hard work, we're going to have that terminal come to fruition much sooner and under what the original budgeted costs were. And so we have to stay very vigilant in making sure that that effort continues to move forward.
The next is to support the construction of the Translational Precision Medicine Complex at the University of Missouri. We have worked hard in company with the university to highlight the TPMC and educate the legislature on its value and its importance to this community. The successful development and implementation of the TPMC will empower the university to bring together industry partners, multiple schools and colleges on campus, and the federal government to pursue a collaborative approach to disease treatment and prevention. The Chamber will continue to advocate for the TPMC so that our community and the state will have access to cutting-edge medicine for decades to come.
Our next item is for us to support the legislation that implements the Sustainable Sales and Use Tax Agreement. As you know, this legislation would help level the playing field with our local retailers and their out-of-state competitors when it comes to use and sales tax on internet and catalog purchases made by consumers. In addition, to keeping our local commerce alive, this legislation would reinvigorate the coffers of our local government and ensure that vital municipal services not only continue but improve in the future.
So we have those 6 priorities as we outlined, and that will be the Chamber's focus for the 2019 legislative session. But please note that we had a very long list, probably 3 pages of items that we went through and discussed carefully, as we mentioned, with the local delegation and also with the membership and the Government Affairs Committee. So we'll have additional positions on issues including business and economic development, education, taxes, and tax credits, and more. So as we look to those, we'll look for your support on those issues and any business-related matters in general as we look towards continued growth, innovation, and success that we have come to characterize with Columbia and our community. Our chamber members, volunteers, and staff are eager to assist you in any way, and at this time, we want to give our local delegation a chance to visit and say a few words about the priorities and the upcoming legislative session and share any thoughts with you that they might have. So we will go by district number, and we will start off with State Representative Cherie Tolson Rush.
It's always so much fun being the first one. I'm not shy or afraid of public speaking, believe me. But I think I'll set the tone that what I'm going to say is probably a lot of the exact same things all the rest of my co-workers, not co-workers, I'm sorry, are going to say too. Because we work together, we are a team down in Jefferson City. I want to thank the Chamber for having us because I speak your language. My mantra has always been my hashtag jobs, jobs, jobs. I've been a small business owner myself for the last 25 years. A lot of people may not know that. I run a very busy law firm here in Columbia the last 7 years, but I ran a city for 30 years, and I ran the city like a business. You know, you can't spend more than you bring in, but where is the gentleman with MEM? We actually had a crisis back in the 80s and 90s, and our work comp insurer went bankrupt. And I was glad the state of Missouri kind of helped with the seed money to start MEM. And you are a wonderful organization. So the thing I wanted to talk about is some of my legislative priorities for this year are a little bit of the same from the last 2 years. I got 2 bills through. One helped the Boone County Fire Protection District, and one helped the city of Centralia. So I was very proud of that. I worked with Senator Rowden on those, and we've got some highway signage on I-70 to honor the first highway patrolman killed in the line of duty, and our Sheriff Roger I. Wilson back in 1933. So this year I pre-filed a couple of bills, but the ones I want to talk about are the jobs, jobs, jobs. One is to help felons once they've served their time and get out. We need these people to be employed. We don't want them to be recidivism back right at where they came from in prison. So I'm sponsoring legislation. Blue Restaurant may or may not know this, but if you're a convicted felon, you can't be a cook or a dishwasher in a restaurant. So I'm working to change that. It passed through committee but did not get to the floor. Another one is in Missouri, on any given day, we have about 2,000 law enforcement openings, whether it's police, sheriff, etc. And POST, which is the Police Officer Standardized Training Program, you can go to MU over here for a 4-month program and take the test to become a Missouri law enforcement officer. But if you've been in the military and you were an MP, for example, you've already met about 80% of the criteria. And in 2014, there was a pilot program done at Fort Leonard Wood that what we term a 2-week crash course. And so the MPs that have about 80% under their belt can go through the 2-week crash course and get them out serving our communities, helping with crime reduction, etc. And the reason this is important, we not only need to fill those positions, but if these men and women get out of the military, they don't have 4 months of going to school to pass the test. They have families to support, and they need to support themselves. So anyway, it's a win-win, and I'm very excited. I am so lucky. Was that me ringing? Sorry about that. It's the Capitol calling me. Might be the governor, actually. So anyway, I'll call the governor back later. So anyway, it's so good to see familiar faces here today. I have the industrial corridor of Paris Road in my district, the new American Outdoor Brands in my district. And I'm just going to throw a fun fact out to you and I'll be done. The only place in the whole wide world Oscar Mayer hot dogs are made is here in Columbia, Missouri, and the only place in the whole wide world that Quaker Oats rice cakes are made is here there's the governor again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for looking at that. Next up, we have State Rep Kim Kincher.
I wasn't kidding.
I assume my phone doesn't ring the next few minutes. Kip Kendrick, I represent the 45th District. I'll be entering my third term in the General Assembly, looking forward to it. I'm going to continue to serve on Budget Committee and will continue to serve as ranking member for the Democrats on Budget Committee. I stepped off of the leadership for caucus this year, primarily to focus in on the budget in the budgeting process. I found that that's really heading into my third time. I found that's where I've been most successful and had the most biggest impact for Columbia, for Boone County during my time in the General Assembly. So, you know, I like talking budget. I apologize. It's very, it can be dry. But for those of you who paid attention, the consensus revenue estimate came out this last week. The consensus revenue estimate projecting FY20 budget. We're at about projecting growth of about $193 million for FY20. That's roughly about 2% growth for the new fiscal year. That's pretty slim when you consider continued increased costs of mandated expenditures. Probably not a whole lot of money left over to budget, but going to continue to keep the priorities of the Chamber of Commerce, you know, first and foremost, education, whether it be higher education, K-12 education, at the forefront. And definitely the TPMC is a critical component. It's hopefully we can get funding for that to move that project forward. That's not just important for University of Missouri, it's important for the entire state, for the Midwest, for the Columbia economy, for Boone County economy. So that's critical. We can hopefully get funding to get that off the ground and get it moving forward. One thing that wasn't in the consensus revenue estimate that we'd like to see is that additional $320 million that we will not realize this year because of the big 2014 tax cut. It's third year of implementation, third year of a 5-year phase-in. That's $320 million. It won't be collected of that third year phase-in. So it's quite a bit more money than we're bringing in this year, but hopefully we can make ends meet with hopefully the growth that we do expect. One thing that was very interesting about the consensus revenue estimate, and also ties into a piece of legislation I hope moves forward and we can pass this year, would be creating an amnesty for taxpayers for their tax bill coming due in April, creating a period where they won't have to pay a penalty if they are delayed in taxes. Now, the FY19 revenue estimate was revised down from 3.3% down to 1.7%. But that 1.7% shocked many of us, considering that we're currently at -4% over last year. So that's a big swing from -4 to 1.7% in just a few amount of months. So basically what that tells us is that they're expecting a huge collection of income taxes at the end of the year. And that was reflected in the report that was shown. And for those of you employers in the room, you'll remember back to September, the Department of Revenue released a statement that said, oops, we messed up on our withholding tax table that we released. Now, what that means is likely over a 20% decrease in refunds, in income tax refunds going out to people, and over a 15% increase in remittances coming into the state. So there are going to be a tremendous amount of surprise tax bills out there this year. So prepare for it, prepare your employees for it. You'll probably get some pushback. Understand that that was not your fault, that was the state of Missouri's fault. So we're going to have to deal with that. It's going to really throw off our budgeting cycle, especially if we do create amnesty. Are we going to realize the money in time for FY19, and how is that going to impact our FY20 budget moving forward? So that's a big issue that's probably going to get a lot more play in the future weeks. I know Rudy did a story on it this last week, so something to keep on your radar. I'll continue pushing for workforce development bill that I filed this a couple years now, filing it for third year. It's a state work study bill creating more internship opportunities for people going to college, for students in college, getting them out and off campus into paid internships where they hope to find themselves working after graduating. It made it far last year. We got it on the Senate calendar, got it on the House, got it on the Senate calendar. Has strong bipartisan support. Hope to get it across the finish line this year. Hopefully we have some movement on legislation related to the Supreme Court decision on the Wayfair decision, and hopefully we'll see what that entails, but hopefully it's something that makes sure that it's not just looking out for the state, but also local municipalities, cities, counties around the state who are also feeling the crunch of sales tax collection being down significantly. So be happy to continue this conversation in the future. I know I'll be speaking at lunch for Leader, I believe, last week.
January 25th.
January 25th, there we go. Looking forward to that, so if you want to come at that, come to it. I'll probably have a better idea what the governor's recommendation for the budget looks like and give you a broader picture of the budget and forecast moving forward. So thank you very much. Looking forward to serving the next 2 years, and thanks again for the Chamber for a wonderful set of programs.
Okay, next we have Representative Martha Stevens.
Well, thank you for putting this together and for everyone that's attending. So I'm Martha Stevens. I just got re-elected to the 46th District. This year, I'm going to continue to work on legislation that I filed in the past. Last year, we got a bill through that I worked on to support new moms suffering from addiction because, as I'm sure you all know, the opiate epidemic is something that every community in our state faces, and so it's something that I've worked on a lot of issues around that. So I'm going to continue that work this year and supporting some different harm reduction policies to try to encourage people to get into treatment and have more access to treatment, especially for low-income Missourians and families. Going to continue to file, I'm refiling this year a bill that is for families that qualify for WIC, so women, infants, and children, low-income families, so that they can, it's part of a federal program, so we have an opportunity to bring some federal money into the state, and they can use vouchers at their local farmers market. We've passed other legislation in the past for low-income seniors, so this would just be for similar legislation, but for that population. So that's something that we had a hearing on last year, and we're working with different departments to see how we might move that forward this year. I think it's a good bill to support those families, keep our federal dollars local, and support local agriculture. So that's something I'll be working on again this year. And then I'll be continuing to, I'm refiling a bill around regulating payday lenders here in Missouri. The average interest rate is over 444%. And so a lot of states have done things to lower those. At the federal level, we have a cap at 36%. That protects active duty military, and so I think we should expand that to also protect our veterans and our civilians. So that's something that I'll be working on, and I know it's being filed on both sides of the aisle, which makes me optimistic. And so I'll be working on that, and of course continue to be a proponent of adequately funding our K-12 and our higher education here in Missouri. And then we'll continue to also co-sponsor legislation that I support. And one of those that's very important to me is passing MONA, the Missouri Non-Discrimination Act, to add the LGBTQ community into our human rights statutes. This is the 21st year that it's been filed, and so I'm hopeful that this is the year that we can get it across the finish line. It's also a bill that's been filed on both sides of the aisle. So those are a few of my priorities. But again, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with folks today, and I look forward to going into the next session.
Representative Basie.
Thank everybody for being here, and thanks to the food bank for the facility. And Chuck Basie, I'm going into my third term in the House of Representatives, and I actually have no problem with the Chamber's priorities. I think they're all make very good sense. I'll continue to support education in any way I can, the university and public school systems. And a couple of my priorities that I filed last year and made a little traction on. The one that hadn't been mentioned is the bill that we almost got through on allowing the public school district to partner with the city bus lines to work out some transportation for kids that might make a little more sense, save the school district a lot of money. That's ready to file. I haven't filed it yet. I want to reach out to one senator that was a little bit of an obstacle and try to work with him a little bit, see what his concerns were, and hopefully that'll get through this year. The other two bills that I have, one is a veterans tuition bill. I'm going to work with the university people on that. It'll give combat veterans, just combat veterans only, a reduced rate on graduate studies in public universities. And then probably the bill that I'm going to work the hardest on is, in 2010, there was a bill passed that expanded insurance coverage for children with autism and left all the other developmental disabilities out. And I did manage to get that to the committees in the House last year with nobody voting against that bill, and kind of ran out of time. But I think that's a very important thing. These children, the evidence shows that the sooner they get into a therapy program and continue that therapy program, the better chance they have of being more productive later in their life, more independent. So I do have a companion bill that Senator Denny Hoskins filed in the Senate, and hopefully we'll be able to get that a little further along and hopefully get it passed this year. But again, thank you for allowing us to be here today. And one thing I wanted to mention, that we do have a huge turnover in the House. We have over a third of the House of brand new members, and we lost our vice chair on the budget committee to the governor's office back during session. And then here recently, our budget chair, Scott Fitzpatrick, was appointed by the governor to the state treasurer's office. So we have new players in that position. And again, it's going to be a challenge getting to know all these, over a third of the House brand new members. And the Senate has a big new class coming in, 11 new senators out of 34. So anyway, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Representative Walsh.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event. And thank you, businesses, for what you do in your communities and for all of the support that you give to the kids, the youth, and the different organizations. Really appreciate that so much. Sarah Walsh, as you know, I won the special election and just won my first two-year term. I got to join the freshmen on a tour, and that was incredible. It was a 2-bus tour where we visited many businesses and many organizations throughout the state of Missouri, and that was really incredible. And just to be able to see more in depth the breadth of where our budget and everything impacts the state of Missouri. The priorities of the Chamber, Columbia Chamber of Commerce, are good priorities. And, as you know, it's always a situation where trying to find the funding for everything without, if you raise something, you got to cut something else. So the biggest, I think, name of the game there is that there's ongoing dialogue between the Chamber and between those of us that are on Budget Committee and those of us in the legislature. And there has been, and that's what's so incredible for you guys all to know, is that your leadership at the Chamber is constantly in communication with us to make sure that as we're working through different strategies and things like that, that they're keeping us posted on different ways to find solutions. So really honored to be a part of that. The incoming speaker, Elijah Hart, has not yet appointed committees other than the budget chair, the vice chair, Cody Smith, stepping up to be budget chair of budget committee, with the budget chair going to serve as our treasurer. So we're eagerly awaiting that. So as that'll kind of shape, I think, some of the policies that I will be focused on based on what particular committees that I'm appointed on. Some of the things that I worked on last session, I do plan to continue to work on again. I want to continue to find more funding for Missouri Task Force 1. As you know, they're just a gem here in Boone County, and so I want to work to find them that. I pre-filed one bill so far, and what it does is it extends the expiration date on basically it's court fees that go into the DNA Profiling Analysis Fund. And what that funds is the Missouri State Highway Patrol has statutory authority to input offender data into the CODIS system so they can find serial violent offenders and connect those different crimes. And so it's huge, the impact that that is, and so that's gonna expire in August of 2019 if we don't do anything, and so I've introduced legislation to extend the expiration date 10 years. So so that's one thing that I'll be working on. Don't anticipate that there'll be strong opposition to it, but as with anything, we'll kind of see how things go through that and work through that dialogue on that. Really, I hope to be able to continue on Budget Committee. That is something that's been a great honor to be able to serve on, and I hope to be able to, if reappointed, to do a deeper dive into the budget. It is something that is so important and that touches every part of Missouri. So it's been, again, just a great honor to be able to serve in my capacity. Public safety is really a passion of mine, and then I really anticipate that the legislature, just as we've done in the past, fully funded the education formula for 2 years in a row, and so we do have that 2% kind of a slim projected growth, but I do feel that education is a true priority of the House and Senate, and so we'll see what the Senator has to say on that, but truly do feel that that'll be something that we'll be able to continue to keep fighting for. And also, in addition to all of that, I do feel too that in the future, see right now, there might be, because we've given back a lot of tax dollars back in people's pockets, so as people take those tax dollars and then start spending them at your businesses and in their communities, it'll be interesting to see, and I believe that we'll be able to see some greater gains in the years that come to what policies that we've enacted in the Missouri legislature. So again, just an honor to serve you in the Missouri House, and I look forward to continued communications in the future. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you to all of our state representatives for being here today, and now we will move on to Senator Caleb Rowden.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Great to see so many familiar faces. I'm a little under the weather. I have a cold and I have a 10-week-old baby, so the combination of the two is just fatal. It's an honor to serve, and thanks to all the reps for their hard work in the House. I was recently named the Senate Majority Leader, which is a fantastic opportunity for me on a couple of fronts, obviously being from this area. And the influence that allows us to have in mid-Missouri is significant. To be able to do it in year 3 of an 8-year Senate term is unheard of. Certainly pre-term limits, and hasn't been done post-term limits. And it is a product of, as Chuck alluded to, there's a bunch of new members. So we had about a third of the Senate that came up as well. And so, that provides, it's a double-edged sword. My predecessor, Mike Kehoe, told me as I was running that this was a great job and you'll love it. And now that I've won the job, he came back to me and said, yeah, I was lying. So, it's one of those things that I don't file many bills, so I'm not going to stand up. I actually filed one bill for working with shelter insurance, and so they should feel really, really important. But we, it's one of those things that you have the opportunity to really have your hands on a lot of things and really influence a lot of policy. And one of the things that's always frustrated me about Jefferson City is that we never think about things in the big picture in the long term, and that is a product of term limits. It's really hard for us to see 20 years down the road when we're probably only going to be there for 8 if we're lucky. And so, really trying to kind of cultivate and think about these big picture decisions and what that means for us, not just now, but maybe 10, 20, 30 years down the road, and lead that conversation. And I think the position that I'm in now allows me and affords me the opportunity to do that a little bit. And so that's something that I'm interested in. I have a great relationship. Was in the governor's office yesterday talking about budget priorities, a great relationship with my leadership colleague, Dave Schatz, who's the president of the Senate from Sullivan, Missouri. The incoming speaker, Elijah Har, and I came into the House together. We're the same age, and the floor leader on the other side, Rob Vescova, is a great friend of mine as well. And so, those relationships in Jefferson City are really important, and if you feel like you have folks that you can work with, that you can trust, that means something. And so I'm cautiously optimistic. It is going to be a more normal year, I think, than what we had last year, obviously. And that's a good thing. But that also means that now we don't have any excuses. So I think the bar's a little higher, and rightfully so. And I think it's time for us to step up and do some big stuff. And so, as always, any time that you guys have input from me, local stuff, statewide stuff, whatever it is, my door's always open, and this community is what it is, and its vibrancy is what it is because of events like this, where folks are engaged and talking about issues that are relevant to their lives. That means something, and so just to be a part of that is a tremendous honor, and thank you for the privilege to be able to do it.
Thank you, and as you can tell, we have the strongest legislative delegation in the state, and I'm very proud that we get to work with them. And would you take a moment and express your appreciation again for all of our legislators? Certainly, your activities don't go unnoticed, and I appreciate the fact that you're so open to suggestions from us, and we really enjoy working with you, so thank you again. Before I hand this back over to Heather, I do want to say we have a very special sponsor here tonight that I forgot to mention, and that's Regina Rupert from Serenity Winery. I don't know if you know about Serenity Winery. It's a local winery. They have a wonderful facility. In fact, we had our bank summer picnic out at Serenity Winery and had just a wonderful time, and you have great product. And if all of you stay and have some food, please sample her wines. They're wonderful. So I apologize for missing on.
So again, thank you to Regina and also to Missouri Employers Mutual, the Food Bank, Blue Events, Stony Creek Hotel and Conference Center, and Missouri Credit Union. So thank you again to all of those.